Beethoven's only opera, eventually entitled Fidelio, had a very troubled gestation period. There were many versions, each with lots of alterations, and several with their own overtures. It means that there are 4 overtures in total: Leonora Overture number 1, number 2, number 3, and another overture called the Fidelio Overture. The story of the opera is that Florestan has been wrongly imprisoned. His wife, Leonora, poses as a man, Fidelio, in order to free him, and by demonstrating her love and commitment to her husband, she succeeds. Beethoven considered his first attempt at an overture, Leonora Overture number 1, too slight to bear the weight of the drama. He felt number 2 had the right ideas, but was too roughly worked out. Number 3 ended up too grand to be anything but a self-sufficient work. It's the most frequently played in concert and is often called the first tone poem. For me, though, number 2 isn't played enough. It's hugely dramatic and contains a kind of granite-like strength that Beethoven polished away in number 3. The composer and conductor Esa-Pekka Salonen told me that the Polish composer Ludosławski once said to him that he thought that Leonora Overture number 2 was the most perfect 12-minute piece in existence. The overture begins with a stark descending line, with the whole orchestra in unison, as we're taken down into Florestan's dungeon prison. Clarinets and bassoons intone Florestan's aria, In des Lebens Frühlingstagen, which means in the days of my youth. And we hear a brief tour of the opera's drama, including its triumphant ending when Florestan is taken out of the dungeon, freed by the loyalty of his wife. The American composer Samuel Barber lived from 1910 until 1981. He was always slightly detached from modernism and very respectful of the concert tradition, particularly as we hear it through Brahms. This meant that his expressive voice quickly found favor with the public. When Barber was writing his cello concerto, the cello repertoire wasn't as complete as we know it now. Many of the famous pieces that we think of, like the Shostakovich concertos, the Britten Cello Symphony, the Prokofiev Sinfonia Concertante, hadn't yet been written. Koussevitzky, the Russian music director of the Boston Symphony, commissioned Barber to write a piece for a Casale student, Roya Garbasova. In writing the piece, Barber gave us a brilliant addition to the 20th century cello repertoire. The first and second movements are especially lyrical, with animated and flowing melodies. The third is an impassioned dialogue seen by some as Barber's response to the bombing of Hiroshima, and it advances through a string of mini cadenzas for the cello to a blazing close. For these performances, we welcome the German cellist Alban Gerhardt. He's been to Jacksonville once before, and I'm delighted that he's returning. We had a surprise chance encounter this summer in Santa Barbara at the Music Academy of the West, and I was delighted to hear how much he was looking forward to returning to the Jacksonville Symphony. By 1900, Sibelius had had some major successes. His huge work for orchestra, choir and soloist, Kullervo, his first symphony, and the tone poems had all met with great acclaim, but he felt isolated in provincial Finland. He traveled first to Berlin and then Italy. During the trip, the various landscapes inspired him, scribbling down several themes that would end up in the Second Symphony. The Second Symphony has no deliberate program, but after the 1902 premiere, it was quickly appropriated as an emblem of Finnish national liberation. When Sibelius wrote the piece, the Grand Duchy of Finland was still Russian, and a period of Russification sparked intense nationalist feeling. The conductor Robert Kajanis, a friend of Sibelius, said this about the symphony. The Andante strikes one as the most broken-hearted protest against all the injustice that threatens at the present time to deprive the sun of its light and our flowers of their scent. The scherzo gives a picture of frenetic preparation. Everyone piles his straw on the haystack. All fibers are strained, and every second seems to last an hour. One senses in the contrasting trio section, with its oboe motive in G-flat major, what is at stake. The finale develops towards a triumphant conclusion intended to rouse in the listener a picture of lighter and confident prospects for the future. Sibelius denied an agenda, but one suspects he protested too much. He supported Finland's struggle for independence, and the number of his Finnish works that draw on the Kalevala, the Finnish national epic, is a barometer of the strength of his national feeling. Whatever we think, the emotional journey of the second is exhilarating, particularly the arrival of the finale, when we can't help but feel a sense of liberation.